And so 1987 comes to a close. This was the Famicom Disk System's big year, and it was kind of a flop. But hey, here's a sequel to one of the Disk System's most popular games, Ultraman 2, Shutsugeki Katoku Tai. And I think we all know the high quality of video games that the Ultraman franchise is known for. For some strange reason, Ultraman games are often the last game released in a year. Maybe Ultraman just sells really well around the holidays. This is the first time that Ultraman will be the last game, but it's going to keep happening on other platforms. For a bit of a change-up, Ultraman 2 has a lot less focus on, Ultraman. I think we all know that if you're buying a game called Ultraman 2, what you really want are all of the people that Ultraman hangs out with. And in this game, you take control of the Katoku Tai, which could be literally translated as the Special Forces Team, but in English versions of Ultraman, they're called the Science Patrol. When giant monsters show up on Earth, as they often do in Ultraman, it's up to the Science Patrol to oppose them. And they have an entire arsenal of futuristic gadgets with which they can try to take down those giant monsters, and of course those rarely work because it's Ultraman's show. Ultraman 2 consists of 5 stages where you control the Science Patrol and attempt to stop the giant monsters before they cause too much damage. And the process to do this is incredibly confusing. After you've entered your name into one of the save files and then start a new game, you wind up in the Science Patrol headquarters. And here's where you'll start every stage with a little picture of what monster is attacking. Initially, it's just a single monster, and stages 3 and 4 have 2 monsters, while stage 5 has 3 monsters attacking. You have to hit the Start button to bring up a special menu, and here the top option is to set up your team. There's 5 members of the Science Patrol to choose from, including yourself, and all of them have different movement speeds and attack power. There are 3 slots for people that you can bring with you on a mission, though that winds up being pretty irrelevant. After you've selected a member for a slot, you then select between Super Gas or Spider Shot for their weapon. There is absolutely no difference between these. And finally, you assign them a vehicle, either the patrol car or Beetle 1, 2, or 3. You can assign everyone the exact same vehicle, and there's no difference between the 3 Beetles. You might have noticed that time is ticking away as you're doing this, but don't worry, because the only thing time affects in this game is the stage's color palette. The second option allows you to enable or disable Ultraman automatically beginning a special combat with monsters. I strongly recommend that you leave that to automatic. Finally, the last option will let you pick one of those character slots you filled out, and then go fight that monster. Then the action of the stage takes place on an overhead view. You begin just outside of Science Patrol headquarters next to your vehicle. Hit A to get in and out of the vehicle, and hit B to use your weapon. Why would you want to get out of your vehicle? Well, really you wouldn't. So it's a completely useless option there. However, if the monster destroys your vehicle, it respawns right outside of headquarters, and you'll have to go back on foot. Or, you could hit the Start button and bring up this menu. Here you can cancel back out, and then right below that is the option to switch which character you're controlling. Then they start out right next to headquarters, so there's no point in walking back. Below that is the option to initiate the special battles, assuming you had the automatic ones disabled. And finally, there's the options to summon Ultraman and dismiss Ultraman. These can only be used when you're controlling Hayata, but other than that ability, he is the slowest and weakest member of the Science Patrol. There's one other option to be aware of, and that's how if you press Select, you can see the monster's health and the status of Ultraman, assuming he's been summoned. So now with all of that out of the way, how are you supposed to fight the monsters? Well, first you run around the huge map to find them. There's a dot at the edge of the screen that will help guide you to their general vicinity. Monsters are generally stomping around the map, heading towards some major landmark. You'll get an instant game over once they have destroyed enough property, and those major landmarks are worth extra to them. So there's the monster. You can fly up, drive up, or I guess walk up if you wanted to be really slow, and start shooting. And this is doing absolutely nothing to the monster. But you could summon Ultraman and have him punch the monster over and over again, locking the monster in place because it gets stunned when he punches, and that also does absolutely nothing to the monster. Now, the first thing you have to do is go find an item hidden somewhere on the map, and once you've located this arbitrary and meaningless item, then your attacks can start harming the monster. So, how do you find the item? Well, here you have to use the patrol car. Nothing else works. And then you just drive around the huge map as the monster is knocking over buildings somewhere, until you find a building with a blinking red dot on it. Run your car into that, and you'll be asked if you want to go inside. And of course the answer is yes, because that's the only way to make the game advance. The interior of these buildings is exactly the same on all 5 stages. It's just a long hallway, and you have the item at the end. There's one monster in the building that you can't do anything about, and the monster will teleport 1 to 3 squares in a random orthogonal direction every 5 seconds or so. And once you know that, there is absolutely no challenge here. Just walk up to that item and then walk out again. Okay, now you're ready to fight the giant monster. If there's multiple giant monsters on a stage, then they all become vulnerable by taking the item. And I'm sure that rather than running up and shooting the monster in the face, you'd much rather use Ultraman in this Ultraman game to take it down. So turn into Ultraman, start punching, and then eventually Ultraman turns back into Hayata. Yeah, Ultraman's punches still don't do any damage to the monsters. Instead, you have to use the vehicles and shoot the monsters over and over again. The monster will flash and act like it's hurt if the bullet comes close, but that doesn't do any damage. You have to see a little explosion to know that you've hit them. And if you shoot them long enough with the vehicle, then the stage just spontaneously ends with the monster still standing there, but don't worry, you've won. However, you could greatly weaken the monster by shooting it over and over again, and then when the life bar is weak enough, then you bring out Hayata and turn into Ultraman. From there, you can start a special one-on-one battle with the monster, and in this mode, you hit the B button to fire your beam and win. Because the only way to get into this mode is to have the monster damaged enough that one shot will kill it. While you don't have to do this for most of the monsters, you do have to do it for the final boss. And there you go. Once the monster's down, you're back at headquarters, and then you repeat. If for some reason you lose a man on the mission, you can go back to the headquarters, walk into the building, and replace them. Though unless it's the final mission and you've lost Hayata, it's really not worth your time to do this. Ultraman 2 is really not liked in Japan. A lot of kids just couldn't figure out what to do, and the kids who could figure out what to do found the game to be pretty unpleasant to play. The only reason it doesn't have a worse reputation is because it's part of the Ultraman series, and there's a lot worse games than this in it. The really bizarre thing for me in Ultraman 2 is that once you clear the hurdle of figuring out what you're supposed to do in the game, it becomes trivial. I spent 40 minutes beating stage 1, and then 20 minutes zipping through the rest of the game. The location of the building you have to enter never changes, so you just drive over there first thing, then swap to a character with a plane, and take potshots at the monsters. I don't think there's a single system in Ultraman 2 that works especially well. It is possible to make a good strategy game about defending a city from giant monsters, but this is not it.